The Florida Panthers on Thursday night set multiple franchise records en route to their 9-5 win over the Montreal Canadiens. On today's edition of the show, we'll talk about the multiple franchise records, the Panthers falling behind early, and then blitzing the Canadiens once again on today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, March 17th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez, and you can follow me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel and send in your screenshot of your subscription and your 5-star rating and send it over to me on Twitter or email it to me at lockedonflapanthers@gmail.com for your chance to win 2 free tickets to the Florida Panthers versus Toronto Maple Leafs game on April 10th. Best of luck, everybody. So the Cats, they blitz on the Montreal Canadiens. Of course, if you listen to Thursday's episode, we spoke all about how the Florida Panthers have owned the season series for them over the Habs. I mean, 7 goals in the first one, 6 goals in the other. But the Panthers, they just went up another notch, scoring 9 goals, including a 7-goal first period, which was a franchise record for the Florida Panthers. And the We Want 10 chance started early. We didn't get 10, but more importantly, the Florida Panthers got the most important thing, 2 points. And still 2 games in hand on the New York Islanders. But it is a Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, which means Nick Fairbanks is back on the show and discussing a win for the Florida Panthers. Nick, welcome back to the show.
We Want 10. That should just be the show title. Florida definitely came out and prove themselves, whether falling behind or unfortunately having some bad bounces, but definitely showed that, they can, play up and win games that they should. But it's good to be back. It's good to be back on another winning Friday, and I can't wait to get the show started.
Yeah, man, and we think about how the Panthers fell behind early. I mean, 16 seconds in, Mike Matheson shoots from the left circle, beats Sergei Bobrovsky far side, one that we think that Sergei Bobrovsky would want back. And the second one where Bobrovsky was screened by Mark Stahl on that one. And then but the Panthers, even both times when the first one where Habs had the lead, the Panthers came back like just 2 minutes later, which beautiful forechecking by Nick Cousins and all that to get the puck and then just backhand it to Colin White driving to the net. And then the second goal, like we said, screened by Mark Stahl, but that was when the Panthers had the lead. Easy zone entry for Carter Verhaeghe, and then the Panthers just continue to just score goals in bunches. But this is something that we've never seen before. I mean, you think about just 5 goals in 10 minutes. At one point, their shooting percentage was 50%. I mean, the Habs, their shooting percentage was 100 with scoring 3 goals on 3 shots. This isn't the best single game save percentage for Sergei Bobrovsky, but still, the Panthers just blitzing the Habs. I mean, and they were doing it cleanly too, where the Panthers were pinning up against the boards. Also the Montreal Canadiens on one of the goals, I believe it was the Ekblad goal. It was a failed zone exit for them that I believe it was Jonathan Drouin that just gets the puck out of the zone and passes it to no man's land, and then the Panthers have extended zone time for them. Man, I just want to get your thoughts about that first period, about how the Panthers were just in on the action and just an offensive explosion in that first period.
So that first period is something that we'll probably likely never see again,
Sure.
especially with the types of bounces. I mean, not only did Florida set a franchise record for, scoring 7 goals in the first period, but, both teams scored 10 goals, which is ridiculous. I mean, it makes you wonder if there was any defense being played, if the goalies were even, there. I kind of feel bad for Bob because I feel like first 2 out of 3 goals that were scored against him, he really had no chance. The Matheson one, he definitely wanted back, but Matheson, that was perfect placement. It was a perfect shot. He had enough velocity on it and everything. Bob just got beat. So whatever. I mean, just not a fortunate time when he got beat, but you have the other 2 goals that just, they were just weird bounces. And, that's what this game was about in the first, probably I would say 30 minutes, is that weird bounces, just pucks being on net and just going in. Verhaeghe, his second goal was just basically throwing a rebound right off of, I think it went off of Matheson and right into the goal behind Allen. So it just seemed like whatever Florida was throwing at the net, it was going in, which is something that, coaches try to preach, like throw the puck on net, good things happen. But it just always seems like this team has always been snake bitten about trying to throw the puck into the net. It was either blocked or it just wouldn't make it. And, they get rewarded for it, against, unfortunate, lottery team in Montreal.
Yeah, the second Verhaeghe goal was a shot that was off the end boards, and then Verhaeghe backhands it past Jake Allen. And let's also consider that the Habs pulled Sam Montembeault after the first 3 goals, then go back to Jake Allen. They scored 6 more there, and then Montembeault's back, and he doesn't give up a goal after that. Crazy to think. And just the different types of goals that were scored too. Gudis' shot is deflected off of Lomberg and in. After a scuffle in the Panthers zone, Sam Reinhart leads a rush, and then a sharp angle shot that beats Jake Allen as well. But I want to ask you, I'm gonna give my answer after you give yours. When did you think that the Florida Panthers had full control of this game?
Probably after goal 6.
Goal 6?
To be honest, yeah, goal 6, just because we've seen this team this year. They've given up 3 goal leads, 2 goal leads, and 2 goal leads this season. He happened to be the worst lead to have. And I think once they put the 6th goal in, I think it was Reinhardt's goal, actually, the one where he just beat the whistle. I think that was just the tide right there. I think the game was over after that. It's just, how do you come back from that?
I that's a very valid point. Mine would be the first Ekblad goal, where he just throws something to the net. It's kind of like a knuckleball towards the net and from the right faceoff circle, and beats Jake Allen short side. And it's just, you see Aaron Ekblad going to the bench after that goal, just kind of like saying, I don't know how I scored that, but hey, they got the goal there. And they pointed out on the broadcast, no penalties, no broken sticks as well. So it was very positionally sound, and the Panthers didn't get their first penalty until the third period as well. So just a great showing and for the Panthers. And just we could go on and on about just this first period, talking about it as well. So it's franchise record, man, just incredible to witness this.
They are one of 5 teams since 2000 to score 7 goals in a period.
Just amazing, just incredible what that we witness history there on Thursday night. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2. We're going to talk more about this game, talk about more than just a franchise record in goals for a period, and just talk about more of the point streak that the Florida Panthers are currently on. We're going to discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. But first, we're going to tell you all about FanDuel Sportsbook. And we're at the midway point of the NBA season. It's here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on anything from the money line, point scores to threes drain. Plus, FanDuel lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss your chance on your first sweat, no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Segment number 2 here on this Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. It is another victory Friday here on the show, and just more things to talk about as far as this game. I mean, the second and third line combined, goals for and goals against at 5-on-5, 5-0 compared to when you combine those two lines together. And we even saw it on the final power play how Maurice rewarded the stall line and getting them on the power play. We saw Nick Suzuki get a cross check and then hitting the referee in the face as well. But those two lines combined, the middle six, just incredible tonight. Matthew Tkachuk with his third straight 3-point game. And now Matthew Tkachuk is one of only 5 Panthers to score 90 points in a season, featuring Pavel Bure, your boy Nick, Sasha Barkov, Jonathan Huberdeau, and Olli Jokinen. What a group to be a part of for Matthew Tkachuk, and another 3 points on the night as well. And here's also another franchise record, Nick. The most goals in a 3-game span against a single team. Now the Florida Panthers have 22 against the Montreal Canadiens. You do some quick math, that's just over 7 goals a game in the 3 matchups. Their previous franchise record was against the Columbus Blue Jackets with 20. I forget which year. The broadcast pointed out, but I didn't see the year. 8 power play goals, 8 of 18. That's 44% against the Habs. Aaron Ekblad got 2 goals, including 1 on the power play, which was a beauty of a setup by Matthew Tkachuk from the trapezoid, bounces off Montour, gets it, and then Ekblad cleans it up. Still no Panthers defenseman has never gotten a hat trick. Still. Aaron Ekblad had his chance. But man, let's just talk about the franchise records for this team and just about how the Florida Panthers are just heating up at the right time, as we saw a little bit of help from the scoreboard watch with. I was dual casting some more games today. I was dual casting New York Rangers versus Pittsburgh Penguins, which the Rangers won. And I checked in the final few minutes of Ottawa, Colorado, which Ottawa is looking to be out of the race. But just the records, the scoreboard watch, the Panthers heating up, Matthew Tkachuk, the floor is yours.
It's all coming together, and you got to win the games that you're expected to win. I know that the game started off shaky. It was just trading chances and trading goals back and forth. But you need to find a way to win those kind of games, and you need efforts from your best players. And we had wondered. I honestly asked this last week. Where's Matthew Tkachuk? And here he is. 3 straight games with 3 points, and he's only behind maybe Draisaitl and McDavid for the amount of 3-point games that they had. I think McDavid's had a ridiculous 19 games, which, at the end of the season, he could hit 25 or more, which is amazing. But, to get back to Florida, they've had some scoreboard help over the last couple of days, which finally it's starting to break their way. They're winning games or they're getting points, which, as you mentioned before, they have points in 5 straight games. So would they have liked to have gotten an extra point maybe, against Winnipeg, because they came back and they kind of deserved to win that game? Of course. But, I said it best, I did not expect to win that game. Winnipeg plays a big game. They have a lot of big players. They play a physical game. Florida doesn't. They're more of a finesse team. They have a lot of skill. They can outwork you, but Winnipeg is just one of those teams that you're not going to be able to do that to. And the fact that they're able to come back and that they've been able to show this resiliency over the last couple of weeks when they couldn't at all. I mean, think about how many games it took them to actually try to come back from 2 or 3 goals down to win a game. I mean, it was like every other night last season. This season, it took about 50, 60 games, which is it's a long time. But, going back to my first point that, you need your best players to be the best players. Matthew Tkachuk is showing up at the most crucial times right now. And, I hope he keeps it rolling and going on to the next couple.
Yeah, and they're gonna definitely need him down the stretch. More importantly, and Carter Verhaeghe. Let's talk about him for a second. Gets two on the night, 34 goals. He could possibly hit 40 goals. Damn, and they got him for nothing. But he spoke after the game about following the system and getting used to the system, and it was tiresome talking about it at the beginning of the season when the Panthers weren't winning, and the fact that they were falling as much as 11 points behind the standings. And we keep talking about, what is the system? What is the system they're following that these players are talking about, because it's not resulting in wins. I think we're seeing the fruits of that labor now for sure.
It's called patience, and it's called, buying into the plan and really just working the program. Verhaeghe, ever since he's come to Florida, has been a flashy player. He's always been able to put the puck in the back of the net. Not as good as he has this season. I would say last season he was more of a goal scorer, in the moment that it was needed. I mean, look at the first round against the Capitals. I mean, he scored timely goals that kept them in it and even won the series for them. So I'm very happy to see him continue his progression because, as you said, he can hit 40 goals. And if you can do that, then his next contract, I hope Florida can afford it. But at the same time, that's somebody you want on this team. You want somebody who's willing to be in the dirty areas, who's got a wicked wrister, and who plays the game the right way. And I've never heard a complaint come out of the guy, to be honest with you. He's come from different systems. He's played his way up through every single level, and to where he is now, I'm happy for him, and I'm glad to hear him say, like, hey, we're buying into the system, and it's now all coming together.
Yeah, and you also think about how it's happening mostly at even strength too, where he has of his 34 goals, only 6 of them are on the power play. He's got more power play time, also due to circumstances of Aaron Ekblad getting hurt and not being allowed back on the ice on Saturday against Winnipeg. In comes Carter Verhaeghe, gets they get a goal on Saturday, and let's give Aaron Ekblad credit for scoring on the power play there, but also for Verhaeghe as well, getting some more of that time and getting the practice time there too, because I think you give a little bit of a different dimension when putting Carter Verhaeghe there. Of course, he's a left-handed shot. Ekblad is not as fast, doesn't have as much of a wrister as Verhaeghe does. Ekblad's of course more effective on the one-timer and all, and just the opportunity has been there, and credit to Maurice for also recognizing that too.
Definitely. I mean, I will say I think he's also been underutilized on the power play. I think the emphasis is always on Barkov. You're going to be looking at Ekblad down in the slot, or even up top for a one-timer. I think they're trying to, give everything to Chuck below the red line and then give it to Reinhart. But I think if Verhaeghe was given an actual legit shot, he could probably score maybe 10, 15 power play goals a season. I think he's that good. He's got that good of a shot. I just think that they're trying to balance out the lines a little bit more and not stress players or stress everybody out as much.
No doubt. And honestly, with this part of the schedule now, you don't have as much practice time as you used to with now during this these last 14 games, you only have a 2-day gap in between games 2 times the rest of the way. So it's full speed ahead for this Panthers team. And just as after, it's crazy. We spoke about how for a whole calendar month, they don't leave the state of Florida. And Saturday will be their last game of their very long 7-game homestand, which has been very successful for this Panthers team. So that's a good way to transition over to segment number 3, where we'll talk about where they were a few weeks ago to where they are now with the at the beginning of the homestand to now, and prepare as well for the New Jersey Devils. We're going to discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Third and final segment here on this Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. The Florida Panthers coming out with a 9-5 beating of the Montreal Canadiens with still 1 game left against the Habs in just over a week when the Panthers go on a Eastern Canadian trip. So, Nick, the Panthers don't play another Western Conference team this season. Every single game is in the Eastern time zone. Panthers have played, as far as Eastern Conference team, the majority of their wins have come against the division, which is a plus for this team. But let's just talk about just the last month that the Panthers were at home, which was we knew that the Panthers were having had played night and day sometimes when it comes to home versus road. Now their home record stands at 20-10-4. For the Panthers. So great home record for them. But of course, starting off with the first game of that was a little bit of a trap game against the Anaheim Ducks. Of course, we had that funeral sounding podcast when the Panthers lost to the Sabres. It for me at the time, it felt like it was over, but that's why you can't count this team out then. And of course, the 1 game against Tampa Bay, and then the 7 straight games. Now they're 4-1-1 in the 7-game homestand, with 1 game to go against the New Jersey Devils. Just when you think about whether or not the Panthers make the playoffs, and whether you think about how close this race is, we are going to remember certain segments of the season. Of course, pre-All-Star break, we spoke about Alex Lyon and how his starts helped the Panthers weather some storms. But then you look at this segment of the schedule where the Panthers just important stretches, and you think about how it wasn't favorable early with so many away games. But then you take care of business at home. You FLA Live Arena buzzing again, as the We Want 10 chants were raining on early. And what an opportunity for them to finish on a high note on Saturday night as the New Jersey Devils come for the third and final matchup between these two teams.
So I know every game going forward is a must-win game, but I really do think in order to set the tone for going on the road, they need to win on Saturday. They need to beat one of the top teams in the East. And on top of that, they got to beat their former coach in Andrew Burnett. I think if Florida wants to test their mettle and show that they, and prove that they belong with all the playoff teams, they need to beat New Jersey on Saturday. And the way that they're playing right now, as long as they're not giving up 5 goals, a game like they have the last 2 games, I think, the game favors them. But, going back to your point of, where was this team about a month ago, with this long home stretch coming up? This has been the most crucial part of their schedule. There's a difference between having an okay and good, homestand, which they're having a good one right now, 4-1-1. But Saturday is going to separate it from it being a good one, possibly
Versus
being
great.
4-2-1. Yes, versus great being 5-1-1, and then being possibly a point out from both Pittsburgh and the Islanders. With a game in hand still on the Islanders. So they need to come out and play. They need to be able to show that they belong, as I said. But, it kind of, puts things into perspective that, the team really needed to get healthy. They really needed to kind of string some things together in order to prove themselves. And I think we're seeing that now. Whereas earlier in the season, they weren't healthy at all. They didn't get consistent goaltending. As you said, like Lyon had to come in and actually kind of solidify the position a little bit. Even though he wasn't, lights out, he provided something that the team didn't have, which, hey, we're going to see him on this road trip because there are some back-to-backs coming. So I'm actually looking forward to that. But it's encouraging to see where they're at right now. And, I just hope they don't break our hearts. I mean, I'm going to knock on wood right now. As a lifelong Panthers fan, or I should say since 99, it just seems like that's their MO. They always come up short. But I think after tonight's game, with how weird things were and how, like, the bounces were and everything, it just feels different. I honestly think that they could do something now, and that they believe in each other.
Yeah, and you see a little bit of a different pep in their step when they
Mm-hmm.
go on the ice, and even Anthony Duclair, his presence on the ice, getting the chances. I mean, it hasn't gotten into actual goals on the score sheet, but if you're watching the games and you see how he moves and he's getting in front of the net, you're seeing that it's getting there for Duke, and he's making a difference. And with him even being on that top line, the fact that you can keep that second line together is very crucial. And we think about Pittsburgh just this week. They're facing the Rangers 3 times this week. They beat the Rangers in
Yeah.
overtime on Sunday. Lost to them tonight, and then they play a nationally televised game on Saturday night. So Panthers play at 6. The final horn will go off as that game will be in the first period. So if you want to flip channels or even dual screen it, which is likely what I'm doing. This is dual screen season as far as sports watching. But with that going on, and then just a few hours later, before the Islanders take the ice, they're playing a 10:30 puck drop in San Jose. I'm not counting on the Sharks to beat them, as they are just a few points away from the highest odds in the lottery, as Columbus is losing 4-0 right now against the LA Kings. But you just look at that as well, and just opportunity after opportunity. But also, let's talk about the season series for the Panthers and the Devils. They played twice in a few day span. Of course, we all know what happened with Sasha Barkov and Nico Hischier on the faceoff in the first game, and then Matthew Tkachuk going after the Devils when the final horn hit. The second one was nationally televised game on TNT, so everybody got to see what happened at the end. And of course, the conversation was all what happened a few days before. But the Panthers had the lead in that second game going into the third period, and just the New Jersey Devils just I believe they scored 3 third period goals to break it away. But that's a different Panthers team from December to now. So I don't know if so much time has passed that we won't get any major antics in the game, or whether these teams are just too focused and they're trying to just solidify playoff position, because the New Jersey Devils beat the Carolina Hurricanes just a few days ago. They're still fighting for the division, and they got Timo Meier in a trade, in which a lot, including myself, feel like they fleeced the San Jose Sharks in that trade. But they're a different team too, as far as what they bring to the table.
Most definitely. And, to go to your point, if there's going to be antics or anything that's going on, I mean, we have Matthew Tkachuk. Are there antics or anything that possibly could be happening at any game at any point? I would 100% say yes. But I mean, is it going to be going towards Nico Hischier? Not necessarily. I think that's pretty much done. Was Barkov hurt because of it? I don't know. I mean, Barkov says no, it has nothing to do with it, or it was an accident. So I think that's over with. I think it's going to, come down to each team wanting to play their own game and actually wanting to either one get closer to their playoff berth, or secondly trying to get that wild card and everything. So I expect a good game. Hopefully Bob has gotten the whatever happened to him the last two games out of him, and he stands on his head, or at least puts on a good show to give the team a chance to win, because the Devils, they got some weapons and they got everybody scoring right now, and that's one team I would definitely look out for. If the top tier teams like Carolina or let's say Boston get knocked out in the first round, I think the Devils may be the new favorite.
The Carolina Hurricanes don't have Andrei Svechnikov now, so
Nope.
That's probably their biggest playmaker. So that is their biggest playmaker.
Mm-hmm.
So if wild card one goes up against the Carolina Hurricanes, that will be one matchup to watch. But I do
Looking
think
like
that
Pittsburgh.
more than likely, which. But also the New Jersey Devils could also be that team. I mean, a lot of them we've talked about off camera how we kind of view them as this year's version of the Panthers, like high scoring offense, questionable goaltending, with which Vitek Vanacek was questionable on whether he was going to be the main starter or not, or whether it was going to be Blackwood. But right now Blackwood's not even playing right now for the Devils, and I mean. Vitek Vanacek, 908 save percentage, 3 shutouts, 252. Bobrovsky, before tonight had his GAA under 2. It went back up over 3 tonight based on this game as well. But Bob's getting to the point where he's getting it together. I mean, the broadcast also spoke about Bob's save percentage, how it's the third best since January 1, behind Linus Ullmark and Ilya Sorokin. So this current stretch of Sergei Bobrovsky, as far as save percentage goes, isn't the best. But I'm gonna use that sample size from the first 2.5 months of Sergei Bobrovsky, and also considering that he has a big workload going for him right now, which is why we need to see Alex Lyon possibly start one of these games in the back-to-back. I'm leaning towards it being against the Flyers on Tuesday.
Yeah, and you hope so, but I just hope Bob doesn't feel that he's burned out right now. The Jets game we kind of knew what that was going to be. This game a little bit. Like I said, I think there's a few of the goals that I'm not going to fault him for. Like I said, the Matheson shot was just too perfect. And then the second goal, he was screened by Mark Stahl, had no idea. And the third goal was just a weird bounce. Like the guy, I think, like stopped in his skate and then just kind of just chucked it. And then there was a deflection off of that. Like even a beer league goalie wouldn't know what the hell to do with that. Yeah. So, I mean, Bob's been great, and I just hope that at this point in his career, he's not getting burned out, that he wants to be in every single game, that he wants to make a difference, and he wants to be the guy that's called every single game, because he's that important to this team right now, whether people want to believe it or not. If it wasn't for his resurgence from January 1st, this team wouldn't be where they are right now.
No, sir. No, and got to give Sergei Bobrovsky, the 10 million man, his roses, regardless of what the stat sheet shows in the last 3 games. That's for sure. You could expect him between the pipes, of course, once again on Saturday night, and of course the first game of the back-to-back. That's for sure. Of course, with Alex Lyon getting some reps right before he is expected to start, but of course things can change from now until then. The Panthers still have one game to take care of business, where they're they're welcoming in Jack Hughes, Nico Heiser, Dougie Hamilton, Timo Meyer, and the group all to South Florida on Saturday. And it's going to be a good opportunity to end the homestand on a great tone. Hopefully, we are talking about 5-1-1 homestand right before the Florida Panthers go on a quick road trip starting next Monday and Tuesday. But Nick, I want to thank you so much once again for joining me on this Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Tell everybody where they can follow you online.
Armando, thank you for having me on again for another Fairbanks Victorious Friday. I can only hope that the Devils find their way down here and take in spring break on Fort Lauderdale on Friday night. That way the Panthers, will have an easier time with them. But, with that being said, everybody can follow me at Prudentious0. Look forward to the fan commentary and just seeing what everybody thinks about how Florida's played since January. And, what are we looking forward to for the rest of the season, and what could we look forward to in the offseason possibly as well? So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Nick, and I'll see you next Friday.
See you next Friday.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Steel Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. Now make your second listen of the day, Game to Game NHL. Every moment, every top scorer, game to game NHL has it covered. Make sure to follow Locked On Game to Game on Locked On NHL, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. So I'm Armando Velez with Nick Fairbanks, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.